Tay was laughing for the first time in a week. It had been hard listening to the recovered humans, even harder to participate in the tribunals. The Admiral had deemed the slave owners as combatants in collusion with the Intech, a dubious concept that allowed for swift and, above all, quiet action. She had spent nearly a month taking witness statements. Now, reliably as always, Bork had made her day. "Chief, get up here. We need to talk." Chief Engineer Roden, a founding member of the Intel Engineering Department and veteran of the Human Defense Force, woke up at his desk again. He checked the time. "Crap." He simply responded, "Captain, give me 10 minutes, I'll be up to you," then jumped into the shower. This ship was so damn big that his office had a full bathroom, bigger than the Admiral's one on his old ship. Then he pulled on fresh overalls and went to see what madness his captain was up to this time. "Chief, are you unhappy with your quarters?" Was not the first question he was expecting. "What?" "Captain, my quarters are fine, magnificent even." "Why?" Tay grinned at him. "Because, Chief, according to the regulations, as interpreted by Bork, they are vacant and should be reassigned. You haven't signed into them for over a month. Chief, you haven't left your office for weeks. I'm sorry, I didn't realize how much pressure you were under." Roden paused, thinking back. He remembered getting bits and pieces moved, but not when. The captain had been wrapped up in the tribunals. He was busy with the new teams. At some point he had just started sleeping on the sofa in his office. Everyone just assumed he was there. It had saved a long walk every time something needed doing. He looked at Tay. "Sorry, Captain, I didn't notice. It just seemed simpler to stay put." Tay nodded. "I know, Chief, but you can't babysit everything. The teams need to learn, just like we did." Roden carefully didn't mention that he knew that the captain hadn't even seen her new quarters yet. "Yes, Captain." Tay brought up a file. "His file. You haven't taken leave since we met. In fact, you haven't taken any since the war began. That's not good enough. As it happens, I need a senior engineer for something, and that is going to be you. Bork's planet has never had a visit. In fact, only the XCC knows anything about it." She grinned again. "Guess who I'm sending? Go and see if we should recruit there. Go fishing. Relax a bit. I'll hold the ship together while you're away. Captain, perhaps another time in a month or so." "Chief, in a month this ship is undergoing trials. Captain Sullivan is assembling a collection of enemy shipping for us to play with. I need you fresh and I need to meet the new crew. Take a week off, see what you think and relax. It will all still be here when you get back." Despite the grumbling, cursing, and last-minute packing, Roden found himself in a shuttle and on an unexpected holiday. That was pretty much his last thought as, some hours later, his shuttle was slammed into by an Intech privateer. Then, as he was dragged from the ship in a blur of pain and confusion, the shuttle collapsed under fire, falling into the dark along with his consciousness. He awoke to the sound of a medbay, humming to itself as always. For a moment he couldn't remember a damn thing. Then the smell, the pain, and shock all returned. The enemy, the Intech. He tried to rise and, to his surprise, found it easy. He wore no chains and his burns were gone. The room was gray, dark to his eyes but not a cell, just another Intech ship. He had dismantled enough of them to recognize the scavenging, thieving bastards that they were. He wondered where they had stolen the medbay and who had died in the theft. Slaving bastards. The lights came on, gently rising to galactic normal. An Intech stood at the door, its mask hiding all intent. Roden looked around, but there was nothing that he could use, no handy plot device to escape. Years of bad novels had been ruined for him. It moved forward. Chief Engineer Roden of the Curiosity, you are a prisoner of war. Remain calm and prepare for interrogation. Food will be made available shortly. Any attempt to interfere with the ship's systems will result in immediate death, probably for all of us. This ship is quarantined due to your hazardous nature. Do you understand? Roden was confused and angry. So now you take prisoners? I thought you took slaves. A prisoner of war, am I? As if you thieving bastards knew what that even meant. He glared at the creature, every report fresh in his mind. I just met the last people you stole, you dumb fuck. Don't pretend you even know what it means. Then I met their children. Now you're meeting their fucking ancestors, asshole, and we will kill you all. The Intech hadn't moved. Yes, you will. You poor innocents, dragged into the light with your hidden armies, with your trail of blood and war finally reaching the stars. We cannot stand against you. I know humans, even as slaves, you were dangerous. We thought you dead, and then we find you on every ship, turning our sheep into wolves. You think you understand, you poor fools. Our blood is being used to pay everyone's debts. You are not here to die or to slave. You are here to understand. The door closed and locked behind the Intech, leaving only food of some kind and water. Roden was getting angrier and angrier. This was a job for Tay. Shit, he barely left the damn ship. Why drag him into it? He wasn't even an officer, just another engineer. He was no Marine, ready to kill with his teeth. Mind you, he had already spotted 3 faults in this room that he could use to cause the power to fail. Maybe one that might blow the ship, if he could find some copper wire and a toothpick. He was harmless. He ate the tiresome rations and drank the water, and then he waited, occasionally mapping the garbage systems they had stolen and tied together. Amateurs. After some time passed, after his mind had ranged through all the worst possibilities of what might be coming, the door opened. This time there were 3 of them, all inconveniently armed to the teeth. "It is time. You must come with us and speak with the interrogator." In silence, they marched him towards another gray room. The leader knocked gently on the door and announced, "We have the human, as ordered. Enter." Roden was pushed into the room, another utilitarian cabin space as ugly as its owner. The door closed behind him as he faced the interrogator, trying to prepare himself for what might come. Tay was surprised when Bork arrived unexpectedly. He never did anything unexpectedly. Usually she got 3 memos before he would print anything, or request office supplies. She waited for him to start. "Captain, the chief engineer is late, nearly 20 hours now. The civic reception has been postponed. Our ships are looking for him, and we have found the burned wreckage of a shuttle in the outer system of our capital system." Tay rearranged the information and called the admiral. "Sir, the chief has been taken or killed on his way to the Bork homeworld. I need fleet support immediately. We need to find him. If the Intech have him—" She stopped speaking, beyond words at this point. She had sent him out there, forgetting that wars have 2 sides, that no one is stupid, that the Intech have fought every species in the damn galaxy and lived. Everything had been too easy, every victory expected. Apparently no one had told the Intech that. Admiral Williams sat across from Captain Tay, waiting for Captain Sullivan to arrive. "Tay, we will find him. We know exactly where he was going. We know where the shuttle was lost. They obviously didn't intend to kill him, and they must know how many of their people I hold. Nothing he tells them is useful against us, unless they start handing him tools and let him work on their own ships. I suspect that no species in the galaxy would be that stupid." Tay grinned briefly, aware that it would be the last mistake they made. Xenos never seemed to realize just how powerful their technology was, or how an engineer with nothing to lose might act. Still, these were just words, and she needed more. "Admiral, I sent him out there. I want him at home." The Admiral had a clear idea of Tay's feelings. He had sent out people that didn't come back, but Tay, despite everything, was new to the reality. It didn't matter if they recovered the chief or not, this was going to hurt his new captain. Growing up was always painful. Roden was left alone with the interrogator, an Intech that seemed happy to just sit behind his desk and wait, its mask shielding any emotions, its body still. The room smelled old, unwashed, and neglected, but it didn't appear to hold any of the devices that had crossed Roden's mind. Finally it spoke. "Sit down, Chief. I am your interrogator, and we will, I'm afraid, be spending quite a lot of time together. I have a name, but since you humans have no sense of smell worth a damn, you will simply call me Sir. Is that clear?" Roden vaguely remembered training far too long ago and far too short for being held prisoner. Since they were mostly about laws that didn't apply and for a world that felt very far away right now, he decided to wing it. "Intech, I will call you that the day you complete officer training in the HOF. You are Intech to me, or I will use some of the many other names I can think of right now. I am Erie Roden, Chief Engineer on the Curiosity Human Offensive Force, and I have a service number written down somewhere. If you let me get back to the ship, I'll be sure to send it to you." The Intech didn't respond immediately, until with a hiss from its mask, it sank back in its chair. "Chief, you are everything I dislike in humans. Arrogant, individual, and defiant, so sure of your morality. But I have studied you. I have been paying attention. Yes, we held human slaves. For all the good they did the fools that captured them. But so did you. Yes, we are pirates, hunting where we will, taking from those who forced us to the very edges of space. We hide our worlds. Did you think we hid them from you? You child soldiers of the galaxy. You are only the latest of their atrocities against us. I do not expect you to believe me. Indeed, I don't expect you to care that much, but, as I said, I have studied your people. You seem to be able to put the parts together, to see to the core of things in a way that escapes most of you aliens. That is your task, engineer. We will assemble this history for your people, or we will both die here." Roden was getting more confused by the minute. As torture went, he had met worse nonsense at the bar. If this thing was serious, all it was going to do was feed him all the information an intel officer could dream of. Propaganda? Really? He was supposed to turn on mankind, put on a pirate hat, and run around with this crowd. These guys must be truly fucked if they expected that to work. All he had to do was smile and nod, until Tay arrived with whatever bits of the fleet she had persuaded or stolen to come and get him. And all that we will both die crap. Sure, try and involve me in my own torture. Make me care about the one holding the knife, about the things I will force him to do. Every human child had been trained against that shit for the last 10 generations. Compliance is not culpability, cruelty is not kindness, pain is not loved. Lessons from a bitter earth. Fuck you, pirate. If I burn, I will take you with me. Tay had transferred to Captain Sullivan's ship, the Curiosity being too big and too new for this mission. He came to see her in the engineering department where she was, frankly, hiding. They had recovered the chief's shuttle, and she was dismantling the wreckage, looking for anything that might help. Tay, how are you doing? Anything I should be telling the Admiral? Tay shook her head. It was simple enough. They were waiting for him, breached the shuttle, and grabbed him. Most of the damage was done afterward, since he would have been dead if he was still on board. She looked at Sullivan. Captain. They knew he was on the way. They knew exactly where to find him. How? Captain Sullivan smiled bitterly. Well, with the vast resources of my department, with our subtle wiles and sheer genius, I have discovered that dark magic. Bork's government put out a press release, giving out the exact details of his arrival to the entire universe, or at least to anyone paying attention, such as the Intech. Unfortunately, we weren't. It never occurred to anyone that the first ever visit by a human might be important, or at least a visit by someone of his rank. Bork explained it to me while he made the tea. We were stupid, and I'm afraid the chief is paying the price. Tay had been speaking often with Ben, as they tried to settle the recovered people and rebuild Oz into something special. He had insisted that she begin to learn the language, assuring her that no one would fully trust her if she kept using the translator. So far, they had worked down quite a long list of swear words, and right now seemed the perfect moment to use them all. Roden was taken to a new cell, without any handy toys to play with. If he had to be honest, it wasn't a cell, really. Just a bog-standard crew compartment with a bloody big lock on the outside. These Intech made the worst kind of enemy. The ones that were a little too clever for the obvious, and a little too stupid for the strange. If he pretended to be ill, well, he guessed that the 3 heavily armed guards would drag him back to the medbay. If he made something explode, they would do the same. Other than the interrogator, no one seemed inclined to talk to him, so seduction was off the board. What was waiting for him was a pile of documents, a translator, and a notebook. Great. He always loved homework. The documents were basically just a chronology, a long list of stuff that happened. It held no context, only one event following another. From the dates, if they were to be believed, they went back around 800 years. Some were from the Central Galactic Government, some on scraps of random paper. It looked like a family history assembled by some blind old lady with hoarding issues. Not really his field. However, there was bugger else to do here, so he began to trawl through them, eventually finding the earliest paper. It looked like some kind of fairy tale, some origin myth. He began to translate it, the software struggling with the archaic dialect. He shook his head, thinking that of all the outcomes of his capture, of all the fears he had and with his future so uncertain, this was the most unlikely. Any half-competent AI could do this in minutes. Why use him? Tay finally finished matching the weapon signatures from the destroyed shuttle to actual weapons, then matching those weapons to any known Intech ship. All she found was that it was an Intech cruiser, probably less than 40 years old and not slave-built. The energy output was well above any of the half-assed stuff thrown together by slaves. This was from a shipyard. That meant there was an Intech shipyard out there, and one that was making decent ships. Time to talk to the Admiral again. She met Captain Sullivan first since this was his ship. Then they called the Admiral. He was, as he liked to tell them frequently, up to his armpits in a war, so they tried to keep it short. Admiral, we have something important for you. Somewhere out there, hidden from anything we have discovered so far, is an Intech system making good ships with decent weapons. No slaves, no stolen parts. The weapon signatures are consistent with a good, comprehensive, and competent shipyard. We need to find it. If they have moved to a war footing, we may be facing a lot more opposition than we expected. The Admiral waved his officers to silence. You are sure? That seems like a lot of inference to draw from a bit of battle damage on a shuttle. Captain Sullivan was ready for that. Sir, we checked. I'm telling you straight that the information that Captain Tay discovered is accurate. We need to find and eliminate that shipyard, and then we need to find out why the galactic government is feeding us bullshit about these people. None of their intelligence has been accurate. We have gotten better intel in 4 months than they have to offer. Really? They have been dealing with them for hundreds of years. Something is beginning to smell. The Admiral recalled all active missions, dispersing them into the nearby uninhabited systems. Until some conclusion to this intelligence had been found, until he knew what the hell was going on, he wasn't sending them anywhere. Intel went searching, looking for what they had missed. Those Intech that had chosen to betray their people and enjoy a wealthy retirement on Earth were suddenly and forcibly reminded of the terms and conditions, mostly by the heavily armed and suited Intel enforcers. They had questions, so many questions. The meeting had a grim air as Tay, Sullivan, and the Admiral went back over their records. He had ordered a deeper analysis of their previous engagements to see how far this went. Tay was feeling personally upset that her people had missed this for so long, but she finally had an answer for the Admiral. "Sir, we estimate that about 5% of the ships we have encountered were produced by this shipyard. Most were trapped in your first offensive and were destroyed. Statistically, that tells us that they were a professional force, since the pirates surrender as soon as they know they are outmatched. If I had to hazard a guess, they weren't expecting us and got caught. Now they have pulled back and reformed somewhere, leaving the occupied planets and the pirates for us to find and crush. This must be a well-established strategy, given that none of our prisoners have mentioned it. They might not even know about it." The Admiral stood, regarding the maps in front of him. "So somewhere out there is the Intech backbone. They have a plan B, and they are used to using it. The Galactic Council assured us that they have no form of central government, no fleet coordination or structure. They were wrong, or they deliberately misled us. Either way, we need a different approach. If they have a government, then we need to be talking to them. Our war goals were against a ragged coalition of thieves, not a centralized power with a coherent government. I'm informing the XCC that this is their territory. In the meantime, we need to capture one of these professional Intech ships and learn about their chain of command." Roden was rudely awakened and pushed quickly back to the interrogator's room, still blurry from sleep. The Intech was standing, leaning on his desk with his mask askew. "What are your people doing?" "All your forces have withdrawn." "Why? Where are they going?" "Your life depends on your answers." That woke him up. Humans might have no sense of smell, but he could certainly smell the panic in the air. He sat down carefully, unwilling to add to the tension. "Intech, you would have to show me the new information before I could hazard a guess, not to mention that sounds like good news for you. Also, and I mean this sincerely, fuck you." At that he fell silent, waiting to see what this had changed for him. If the fleet had vanished, it was down to new information. Nothing else would have stopped the Admiral. What had Tay found out that would send the HOF out into the dark? He worked through the problem, looking for what he had missed. Then he realized that it was in front of him. Pirates didn't have a disciplined navy, they didn't have Marines. His guards were definitely trained, and this ship was no pirate. This was Intech fleet, a thing they had been told didn't exist. He stayed silent, recalling differences in ships, thinking back to the ones that had told him nothing, the ones that had fought to the death. He realized what Tay had found. His interrogator was obviously reacting to something that was interfering with his plans. Roden decided to see how far he could push this. He made some huge assumptions and went for it. "Intech, we have different rules when dealing with pirates. I assume they finally contacted your central government and are discussing your surrender. That's how we normally behave anyway. If the Admiral is pulled back, I guess you have similar orders." "You are Intech fleet after all." The Intech hissed, seeming to implode. It sat down and regained its composure. "This changes nothing. We will not surrender. Your fleet is simply hiding from us, hiding out in the darkness. You have no idea of what you face, what we can do." Roden leaned forward. "Intech, you already know that's not true. You said it yourself. All I can suggest is that you tell me what you want. Tell me how this ends. We are not conquerors or pirates. You have enslaved humans. You have attempted to attack us ever since we reached space. That must end not just for us but for everyone. What would it take to bring you to peace?" It was Captain Sullivan that found them, a system that was just too good. The patrols were too accurate, the ships too clean and too ready. They were professionals, and that created a problem. They were excellent on comm silence. He was getting nothing useful at all. Then, he spotted the weakness. They had to put up with all the other Intech idiots flying through their space, while they were always trying to be invisible, always hiding. "Sir, I can get our people in there." "What do you want me to do?" "I have every comms ID these guys have ever heard of. I could put us on the doorstep. How close and how many are really the only questions." The human ships silently moved around the system, all wearing the faces of the defeated Intech ships. Unchallenged and unnoticed, they waited for the Admiral's command. Admiral Williams had called in the entire fleet. He had thought about a few silent approaches, but that defeated the purpose. This needed to be loud. This was not going to be subtle. 4,000 ships against, at best, 200 enemies. The Admiral was going to make a point. He sent the planet an ultimatum. waited for a few minutes while Bork made the tea, and then sent in his ships. This time they had been briefed that they were facing professional ships and were to behave accordingly. The Marines were similarly warned. From every direction, the humans arrived, discarding their disguises, and with all the intel Tay and Sullivan could provide. The HOF had divided the system into slices, each with designated targets and priorities. The Admiral watched as all the theory, all the hidden practice, and the intel went to work together. Multiple squadrons intertwined into a firestorm, shattering the surprised Intech forces. Marines began launching their boarding parties into the fight, descending with the wrath of freemen onto the slavers. Tay was only half watching the battle. She had repurposed the carrier to repair the Hod ships, waiting for them to pitch up beside her before running triage. Some of the Intech ships were dragged in by the Marines and allowed to empty their prisoners before being pushed out of the ship for later. Her people were run ragged, but she had to admire the change in Ollie, since it turned out he could curse like a Marine and shout as if he had just been dragged out of the slums. She would have questions later. Bork was running the logistics, now aided by a devoted following of clerks as they kept the whole enterprise running. Ammo, meds, repair equipment, it flowed through his hands swiftly. She had heard that some quartermasters were weeping quietly in their offices. Roden waited in his cell, aware that something had changed. His last interrogation had ended in silence, as the Intech wrestled with whatever was going on. Then the door opened. A single guard without the usual firearms simply asked, "Sir, can you come with me? We have news for you." Then he stood aside and waited for Roden to precede him. This time there was no dank office. Instead, he was brought to the bridge, or at least it looked like a bridge to him. His interrogator was waiting with another Intech, apparently reading information from a console. The masks then regarded him. "Human, it is time for a history lesson. It is still undecided if you will live, but we need you to understand." They walked towards an office, as Roden sneaked a look at every system he could glimpse. "This is our past. Observe." Huge beasts moved across a savanna, obviously thousands of years ago by the dates. These beasts were beyond attack, too big for any predator to risk. A single species successfully latched onto these land mountains, then it began defending it from the competition. It became symbiotic, rather than parasitic. They grew large on the resources available, many never leaving the back of the great creature. His interrogator interrupted, "That human is a tech. Our hosts are beginning. For generations we grew with them, leading them safely through the ages, through changes in climate, flood, and fire. At the end of their lives, we generated a new generation from their beloved flesh." He turned to the human, until something changed. A new species, a biped from the trees, armed itself with sharp stones, set traps for the tech. It was a massacre. Many of our people died with them, but others changed. They sized the spears. They learned to hide in the long grass. Our war had begun. Roden was fascinated. It was the most original species he had seen, at least for ones reaching space. The last line stopped him cold. "War? With who? It seems like a normal enough competition to me." Both masks hissed at him. "Human, you live on a death world. Everything you meet is trying to kill you all the time. We are not hunters. We had no need of such habits. Until the spears appeared, then we learned. The tech serve as more than a host. We are deeply intertwined with their brain, to the point that they serve as libraries, comms, and tribe. We are defined by our host, and they are defined by us." Roden was getting the gist of it, he hoped, so they became living villages, supporting each other in return for resources and defense. "Cool." His remark was received in silence. His interrogator finally asked, "Do I understand you? You appreciate this development?" Roden was surprised. He didn't think the Intech really cared for his opinions. "Sure, it's very clever. I mean, we domesticated a bunch of species. A couple that has traveled the stars with us. Not sure we could fit one of your tech on board, though. Might give it a try. I mean, if that would help." The silence resumed for a moment. "Human, we never sought the destruction of the species that learned about weapons or traps. We simply learned how to defeat them when they threatened the tech. Then this happened." The images were obviously much more recent. A ship landing, a first contact, except it was with the tool users, the hunters. Time passed and a city grew, and in an orgy of ignorance, the tech were hunted. Those magnificent creatures became trophies. The parasites ignored, wiped out quickly with industrialized weapons. The tech, guarded by the remaining Intech, stayed out of range, learning the arts of guerrilla warfare. Soon they were forgotten, then celebrated as some leftover part of history, a thing of fairy tales and reserves. We were trapped, our tech treated like animals, our people like dirt. We decided to fight, all of us, including the tech. They mourned their loss. They hated being trapped and murdered. With nothing but the weapons we had made from the forests, we attacked the city. We sought out the aliens that had fed them such machines, and we destroyed them. The last of the tech. We took the city and the ships. We killed them all, save for the few we required to explain their machines. They sent more against us, still. We had learned, and we defeated them. They accused us of murder, genocide, and theft. We tried to seek peace, but no peace was offered, so we fought. We learned machines. We learned the pitiless war that is life in this galaxy. Roden recalled the mostly peaceful beginning offered to humanity. These guys hadn't stood a chance. Well, I can speak for you. If this is true, then humanity will stand with you. Surrender on terms, give up your piracy and return the slaves, and I'm sure we can get you a second chance. One of the masks let out a snort. You think so? Right now your Williams is killing our fleet, with only a moment's notice. He has thousands of ships and soldiers attacking as we speak. Our bravest are dying today, against humans that pretended to be in-tech refugees until they opened fire. You are such heroes. You are like the rest, and it will not be forgotten. Roden took a moment. In-tech, can you contact the human fleet? The in-techs nodded. I need to call someone. Your lives depend on it. I need to contact my captain. You need to talk to Tay. Tay was barely asleep when her comms went off. It was Roden, whatever he wanted. Chief, whatever it is, can it wait? Then she woke up properly. Chief, where the hell are you? I had the fleet looking for you, but right now I'm guessing you aren't nearby. Tell those bastards that I will kill them if you are hurt, and tell them I will do it slowly. Roden was watching the two in-techs studying him, aware that every word would be recorded and studied. Captain, don't bother looking for me. We have more important things to talk about. I think we have seriously fucked up this time. The in-tech are not what we thought they were, and we need to take a step back. I have communications with their leadership, and right now, and I mean really right now, we need to pull out of the attack. I need you to tell the Admiral to withdraw from the system. Now, Captain, please, for the love of anything you have ever held sacred, stop this battle. Then his call was ended. The comms officer had already sent the security officers down to her cabin before she had time to get dressed. They cuffed her. So, Captain, would you like to explain this? The security chief didn't seem to have a sense of humor or even an honest curiosity about events. The aliens had called the captain, therefore the captain was talking to aliens. Therefore the captain was working with the aliens. Therefore the captain was a spy. She suspected they trained him using Lego. Chief, I have a few moments before the Admiral calls you, so here is how it works. We are missing a man, an important and valued man. He just called me, as a prisoner of the enemy, and gave me a message. I might have more information, but your office cut the call. I'm in charge of ship intel, and believe me when I say that we will be looking hard at your department very soon. The security chief began to speak, only to be interrupted. Chief, just wait. Trust me, you're going to get a call. He didn't get a call. He got a seriously pissed-off admiral, backed by Captain Sullivan and several engineers arriving to find out what was happening to their captain. 1 or 2 Marines had also appeared as well. Why the fuck is Tay in here? Have you lost your mind? I have nearly 1,200 in-tech combatants on this fucking ship, and you bloody idiot, decide to arrest my captain? Release her. Go and get yourself a fucking toothbrush and clean the head. Never ever go near my staff again. Is that clear enough? He turned to Sullivan. Why do you have a fucking mall cop working on this ship? What were you thinking? Captain Sullivan shrugged. Sir, we had to crew the ship in a hurry. This is what I was given. He seemed okay at dealing with drunks and thieves. I didn't know he was an idiot. The Admiral glared across the desk. I want him on combat duty. Send him back to Rifleman. Or let him resign eventually. Tay, my apologies. Please follow me. Tay and the Admiral waited as a stumbling MP undid her cuffs, then moved away. Captain Sullivan stayed to restructure, in a dynamic and comprehensive manner, the department that had dared arrest the captain. He silently laughed that he had been right. It hadn't taken long before there were captains, and there was the captain. Even if she hadn't noticed, there had been 4 branches of the fleet ready to rescue her. Then he began shouting, but professionally. They stayed silent on the way to his quarters, as the Admiral recovered his composure, and Tay thought about what she had been told. Soon they were able to sit in silence, both waiting for Tay to organize her thoughts. Sir, Chief Roden called me. He confirms what we thought, or at least that's what I took from the conversation, that we are being used as a big stick against the enemy. He asks that we stand down and withdraw from the system immediately. Sir, he's an old soldier. I can think of a dozen ways he could have told me he was being forced. He meant it. We are doing something wrong here, something that smells. They called us child soldiers. Perhaps we are not the first. He asks that we withdraw, and I am inclined to agree. It offers no threat now, and I have many of their ships to study. Perhaps we could return their soldiers and crew. I don't know, sir, but I feel we need to change the narrative. Admiral Williams was bemused by his new captain. She had led them through these battles, sometimes alone, sometimes not. She had a sense of things. Her advice on creating bounties had led to a civil war among the enemy, a tactic that even he found ruthless, and then moved to create a machine to extract the greatest advantage for the human fleet from the smallest sources, exposing their enemies' darkest secrets. She had then taken a slight moment to reimagine her new ship, turning it into rescue, recovery, and prisoner of war camp in one breath, keeping his ships in the field beyond any reasonable limit. She was, without doubt, the worst enemy the Intech faced, regardless of who got to point ships at them, and she didn't see it at all. He took a leap of faith in her. Captain, I will withdraw our people. We will send their prisoners to the planet and ask for a truce. Apparently we have much to learn. However, I want our chief and any other prisoners returned immediately in exchange. If they want to talk, well, all the better. Otherwise, I will wipe them from space. Call them and make the arrangements, please. Roden was waiting. He had been cut off, but he had had enough time to do his best. Did she trust him enough? She would have to go to the Admiral, then work another small miracle. He wasn't a man to give up easily. Soon enough, they would come and tell him. He lay back on his bunk, trying to imagine a universe as it looked like for the Intech. Hostile, unthinking, and vicious. A galaxy that hunted your family for sport. He had a bloody good idea of how humanity would have behaved. The Intech would be as nothing compared to how humanity would have reacted. Someone knocked on his door, then they opened it. It was his interrogator. Chief, we need you on the bridge. Please follow me. This time there was no guard. Another Intech, another mask. Maybe he had met it before, but who knew? Its face filled the screen. Chief Roden of the Curiosity. Your message to the human fleet has been obeyed. They have left the system and are leaving us in peace. They have sent shuttles of our people to the planet. Those captured in battle are returned to us. They ask for you, they seek peace. I must be clear. We do not understand. No one has offered us peace, at least not while defeating our fleet. Please explain. Roden wasn't in the mood for speeches. Sir, if they have done that, it's because my captain has asked the Admiral to do it. We are on a short timeline here, since the Hoff on Earth might not agree, or at least not for very long. They want you dead, and they don't want that to be complicated. Call my fleet, ask for terms. I don't say surrender, just begin talking. No one will move against you while that is happening. He waited for that to sink in. Return all your prisoners and slaves as an act of goodwill. You are fucked if you don't anyway. Better to do it first. Announce that piracy is now illegal in Intech space. Allow the human fleet to kill anyone that argues. Accept the loans, the advisors, and the diplomats that will arrive. We will guarantee your independence until you tell us to fuck off. At least, that's how we do it on Earth. Your call! The Intech hissed again. And this system of yours, does it work? We will be free of you if we agree? Roden shrugged. Sir, the alternative is that you die to our fleet. We will not stop, not without a treaty that includes those things. I'm not saying it will be pretty, especially since you get to watch human ships destroy any of your pirates that refuse. You are concerned about Admiral Williams? He's trying to make a good impression. We have many admirals. We are the ones who came down from the trees and sharpened the rocks on our world. Everything that threatened us is dead. Do you want to risk that again? We only have 3 types of animals on our homeworld: protected, pets, or produce. 4 if you include extinct. Call Captain Tay. With the debris still falling into the atmosphere, while the last ragged and damaged Intech ships were being emptied of their crews and intel, Admiral Williams, Captain Tay, and Captain Sullivan descended to the planet. The mood was somber. The Admiral turned to Tay. Captain, I don't know if this is a surrender or some attempt to delay our offensive. You have a great deal of faith in a single call with the Chief, a man under the control of our enemies. Still, your colleague agrees with you, and your instincts have been good so far. Tay was already feeling the pressure. She wasn't entirely sure why she was certain that something was badly wrong with what they knew. It felt like a dark hole in their intel, an itch in her brain. Why did the galaxy have so little to say about the Intech? Why were they permitted to ravage and pirate without any real attempt to stop them? What the fuck was going on? Sir, you can feel it. Something is wrong here. The galaxy has been around for a long time. They didn't need us to do this. Any of the big powers could have squashed them years ago. I think we deserve some answers. The rear of the shuttle was full of Marines. They kept their thoughts to themselves, unlike their smell, which reminded her of burning oil and sweat. She realized that they had probably been taking the Intech ships before being grabbed and sent on an escort mission. She went back and found her Marine sergeant, the one that had adopted Alex as a baby Marine, slumped against the hull. Good to see you again, Sergeant. How's the boy doing? The man looked tired, but his chin lifted. Captain, he's guarding his sister like a bulldog with puppies. His head is in the right place now, except that he still believes that we are demons. Tay laughed. He wouldn't be the first to think that now, would he? I'm pretty sure the Intech would agree. The sergeant nodded, obviously tired. Yes, Captain, and now we get to babysit the Admiral. He paused, aware that he might just have stepped over the line. Sorry, Captain, it's been a long day. No offense meant. Tay shrugged. I didn't hear a thing. I'm just glad you're watching my back. We really don't have a clue what's waiting for us, if this is a trick, a truce, or just a waste of time. A squad of Marines behind me is very reassuring. As it happens, this is my personal shuttle, equipped with many odds and ends, such as a huge coffee supply in Locker 2. Help yourselves! These men were trained for fast actions. They all had excellent response times and hearing. Teamwork and some heavy-duty pushing had pots of coffee filling the ship bay within moments. The sergeant handed her a cup. With our thanks, Captain. Roden was getting increasingly worried. He could see that his status had changed. He had been allowed exercise and decent food, but now he seemed to be briefing the Intech on human surrender protocol. Not really his field of expertise, to be honest. What was worrying him most was that he had no idea of the destination. Then came yet another knock on the door. Perhaps this time he would find out. The interrogator was waiting for him in his office. This time there seemed to be no panic, no fear in the air. Instead, he seemed calm, relaxed even. Chief, we have news for you. Our contacts with your Captain Tay have been useful, and she has brought your Admiral to discuss these terms that you have told us so much about. We have decided to be Japan. You will tell them this. Roden was a bit thrown by that. He had discussed much of the different surrenders in human history, but apparently he had missed the obvious. The bit where it wasn't up to the loser to choose the terms. Intech, that is not how this works. You may be prepared to accept that kind of model, and it is entirely possible that the XCC will accept it, at least if the Admiral asks them to, but it's up to him. If he thinks you are insincere or unwilling to make the sacrifices demanded, he may well just keep shooting. I would ask you to look at, for example, at a model that includes your active support against the pirate clans that infest your civilization. The interrogator nodded. Indeed, we look forward to it. Alas, we have only governed from hiding. We do our best, but we will never have the military to crush them. Unfortunately, your human fleet has crushed what little power we had. If the pirates know that, they will feast on the few peaceful worlds that we hold, and then die to your fleet. Then the galaxy will finally have its victory, and the Intech will be no more. At this stage, Roden was feeling lost. This was definitely not the holiday he had been expecting, and Tay was better at this stuff than he would ever be. Still, he had learned a lot, certainly enough to see the questions that need to be asked. The first one was simple, the second less so. Why do you think the galaxy wants you gone? As far as I can tell, they pretty much leave you alone. The Intech made that weird whistling noise from its mask engineer. They do not teach our history, but the powers remember. They remember that they lead a genocide on our home, that they slaughtered the tech, that they stole our space and made us invisible. The Intech sought the words carefully. We embarrassed them. Roden nodded, familiar with the dynamic. Now for the difficult bit. Why do you think we should give a crap? Why surrender to us? You know nothing about us, except that we despise your piracy and slavery, and that we have wiped your ships from the systems. The interrogator was obviously choosing his words carefully again. Human, many have heard our story. We told you that you were not the first to attack in strength, and it is true. When we become unified, they always send someone. Always a young race, always full of rage. You are the first that seem to care about what happened to our tech. We are one with them, although now we keep them well hidden. They watched you, they listened, and they trust that there is no evil in you. They do not understand our sins, but they are willing to see you as judges. They chose you. If our fate is in the hands of children, let them be at least happy children. Tay left the shuttle after the Marines had formed up, a ring of steel alloy with an attitude all ready to go. It was a pity that, as far as she could see, there was nowhere to go. A vast, windy plain with a few prefab buildings dotted about. This was no pirate nation. This was the outback without the sunshine. She checked her coordinates, but they were right where they were supposed to be. Then one of the buildings stood up. The creature was huge, beyond anything that Earth had bred for 80 million years. Even Earth's megafauna, long since consigned to the history of mankind's arrival, would have paled beside it. It sported roofs, ladders, and weapons. The ground shook at its approach. The shuttle landed in the middle of nowhere, and Roden was led out of the ship, silently cursing about the wind. Then he decided to do it loudly. Intech, I'm not dressed for this fucking place. The wind chill alone will kill me. Did you manage to grab my suit before you shot my shuttle out of space? The Intech appeared confused. Human, your world is far worse than this. Do not try and trick us. Roden snorted. Sure. That's why we have suits. I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt and shorts right now because, I was going on fucking holiday. Either put me back on the ship or let me get dressed. The Intech would explain later that they didn't know what a chief engineer's suit was capable of. Roden put in on like he was a medieval knight dressing for war. For the first time since his capture, he knew he was going to survive, or at least the Intech was going to pay a heavy price. You are prepared? The tech wished to speak to you. The wind was curling around Tay and the others as the vast beast moved towards them. A small figure descended one of the ladders, almost lost against the sheer size of the creature. Then Tay's comms lit up. That dark spot was one of hers. Her comms crackled in the wind. Captain, do me a favor and tell your Marines to stand down. I'm alone and we have a lot to talk about. Tay was already running, pulling her weapon as an afterthought. Sergeant, get him safe. It's the chief. The Marines could move faster than her. They had him surrounded in moments. The effect was slightly spoiled when the captain ran straight to him and embraced him. No one would ever admit that she might have been crying. Captains don't cry in public. The Admiral was quick to interrupt. Chief, you're going to have to do better than that. Approach slowly, allow the Marines to search you, and explain how the hell you got here before us. Roden grinned to himself, his face hidden by his suit. Admiral, I'm happy to see you too. The Marine swiftly scanned his suit, briefly nodding to the Admiral. He's clean. The Chief looked back. Big fuckers, aren't they? Admiral, that is the tech. Those are the ones we have been fighting, not the Intech. Intech just means of the tech. They are a semi-hive race, sort of a village thing. They would like to surrender, but they would like to do it carefully. As I said, we need to talk. It took a while, as Roden explained his odd transportation to the planet. In the beginning, he explained, the Intech had thought themselves hidden. I was simply a clever intel capture. Then the captain found this planet. This is one of the few homes that will support the tech. It is, well, sacred is the best word. They called in their best, Admiral. Their bravest. They knew the odds, that we had thousands of ships. They came anyway. We killed them all, Admiral. I tried to tell Tay, but we have done a terrible thing here. We are being used to crush any of the tech that seek to reach above their station. He turned away from the Admiral, addressing his captain. Yes, they are slavers and pirates, but imagine if it was us. Banned from commerce, forbidden their homeworld for generations. What would we be then, Captain? Would our revenge not be the same? Or would it be worse? These people aren't even hunters. They are symbionts of the tech, not predators. The galaxy drove them to perpetual war. Captain, they have appointed me as their ambassador. I am here to find peace for them. He watched the captain, hoping he was right. Tay was familiar with the rage. She could easily recall the emotions after the shattering of a people. The shitty choices that they would make, had made. It had been her people. Even today, trying to repair the damage. She had been tested, and she had still dropped drones on criminals for the same sins against them. She had shattered the skull of the last creature to pretend it had a right to be superior. She realized that she was picking a side. It wasn't the side she expected. Chief, if you're speaking the truth, then we will end this today. This cycle will end, one way or another, but I choose peace. The air seemed to lighten, the gravity relax. The tech across the planet boiled in thought. They had little understanding of humans, but this human had brought hope and death wherever she landed. She carried war and peace in her fist. They would surrender to her. Roden felt it in the deepest, oldest part of his brain. The Admiral growled, "Those were Intech ships shooting at us. Intech slavers taking our people. I'm not in a forgiving mood. If they want to surrender, fine. Otherwise, well, Tay has a list of targets the size of that beast, and I'm in a position to use it." Behind him, the tech across the plane and the planet raised a roar that should have been heard across the worlds. Thousands of tech, uncaring of the subtleties of human diplomacy, had heard the only words worth hearing. Their people would be safe. Chief Roden shouted at the Admiral, "Sir, they weren't asking you. They were talking to the captain." The Admiral stood, raising his hand. The tech became silent. That your best and bravest would come to fight against us, against the odds given, is something to treasure. There was no waste here today. Only honor and death. We will have peace. In their name, and in the name of those that we have lost. As much as I hate to remind the captain, it is my will that will prevail today. Yet I will not argue since I hold her in the same high regard. You will surrender your worlds to us. They will be guarded carefully by a combined fleet of Intech and humans until you ask us to leave. Together we will build your place amongst the worlds. The treaty will include many, many conditions, but you seem to be listening, so, in the Earth tradition, may I come aboard? The vast creature bowed its legs, allowing the ladders to reach the ground. The Marines were left to stand around unhappily, guarding the shuttle as their sergeants went ahead with the captain and the admiral. How the fuck were they supposed to kill this thing without heavy artillery, or an SSSS? Once they had reached the top, Tay looked around with interest. The ground was made up of bony plates, each one at least 3 meters long. All sorts of pins had been driven into them, obviously causing the beast no distress. The area was nearly empty, except for the group of Intech waiting for them. Tay stepped forward and put out her hand. I am Tay, captain in the Hoff. Thank you for keeping my chief engineer safe. The Intech behaved oddly. It grasped her hand and turned it towards a ramshackle tower that sat at the head of the tech. Captain of the Forgotten, Captain of the Stolen, Captain of the Many Knives and the Sharpened Stones, we gift you this. Her head exploded. Her mind was suddenly swamped with a million images, a million more messages and fears. Her mind burned with the wind around her. Slowly, so very slowly, she saw Ben. She saw Oz. She found herself standing in front of the compound, waiting for the next drone to fall onto the slavers. A voice, old and gentle, asked a question. Tay, would you do this again? To bring death upon them like this? Even in her pain, she had to answer. Their weapons. They die on the sword that they used on mine. Mine. The pain grew, the noise grew. Images of worse, of the sight of a half-dead child slave, of the burning of ships and the human fleet victorious, pushed into her mind. Her mind screamed, holding the rage, pushing away the loss. Mine. My fault. My people. Mine. She fell into darkness. The admiral stood silent. Whatever reason they had to do it, they had exposed his captain to the world. Every image, every emotion had been shared by all. The Marine sergeant beside him was just waiting to shoot everyone in the room. He was only grateful that he was willing to wait. Intech, what have you done? This is what you call peace? Right now we are ready to destroy you. The Intech hissed, Of course, Admiral, killer of my people. We must be human to have peace. We would fight, except that my tech has found her worthy. She is better than you. You are just another weapon. She will be well in a moment, with a gift that only our people can give. The gift that makes the galaxy fear us so much that they would see us dead. You stand on my tech and presume to threaten me, in the name of peace. Utter another word and I will call death upon you. Silence, speaker for killers, before you shame us all. Tay woke up, or at least she thought she did. Her dream seemed to continue. That same old voice was still in her head. Peace, child. You have been given a gift. Today you will know what it is to be a tech. Speak softly and slowly, for today the worlds will hear you. Roden prepared the shuttle as the Marines carried Captain Tay to the medbay in silence. The Admiral had signed the treaty provided by XCC in a curt moment, leaving the stylo in the waste disposal. The war was over. Now he could go back to killing pirates. Chief, is she awake? Roden paused, torn. Sir, she is dreaming or something. Her brain is running too hot. The medbay says a week at most unless she is put in cryo. Tay awoke to the face of her Admiral, staring deeply into her eyes, holding her eyelids with his thumbs. She didn't recommend it as an alarm. The Admiral muttered, Are you sure? We've been here before. Is she awake? Tay squeaked. Even without the shock, the blurred mind, and a throat dry from weeks of silence and medication, she would have to admit that she squeaked like a child's toy caught underfoot. Sir? Noise filled the room. She could hear Roden trying to get the Admiral to wait. She could hear a medic trying to intervene, and, finally, she heard Dr. Reeton throw them both out of his medbay. The voice of an immortal rock with a medical degree beats Admiral, she thought dreamily. Then she slipped into a normal human sleep for the first time in longer than she knew. Dr. Reeton was waiting for her when she woke up properly. He knew Tay, so Bork had been waiting with tea and soft foods for her. Bork had been here every day with tea, every morning since the attack. He had refused to leave until it had gone cold. Then he would remove it. The Admiral had tried soft words, then reason, and finally outright orders. But until his captain told him that she didn't want her regular tea, he would be here, and he would wait. Rayton quietly wondered if his species was somehow related to Bork, since he was as immovable as a creature of stone. He had noticed 4 different complaints from their species that they were now being called the Bork as a collective term. Humanity had struck again. Tay awoke to the aroma of tea. This time it was a welcome face, no thumbs needed. Hello, Bork. Good to see you again. Please go and tell the crew that I'm fine and I will speak to them shortly. And thank you for the tea. Bork simply nodded and left. He was the perfect messenger, since he would simply repeat her wishes and stop. She looked across the room. Dr. Reeton was unlikely to be as simple. Well, Doctor, what did they do to me? Can it be fixed? Retin watched as Tay rebuilt her mind, ignoring trauma, looking for the blown fuse, the damaged wiring, or the corrupt drive. She hadn't touched her emotions yet. He guessed that right now they were sealed in whatever was the human emotional equivalent of high-tensile steel alloy. Welcome home, Tay. Since I expected that to be your first question, and one that the fleet has taken a great deal of interest in, I'll start with the simple version. The Tech are a pseudo-telepathic species. They, as in the vast creature that spoke to you, use immensely powerful electrical neural impulses and can speak to damn near anyone. It can, to a degree, bond you with itself. It's the core of the Intech species symbiosis. Tay nodded. Yes, we talked. It seemed nice. Old, very old. I think they retain the species' memories. She paused. Doctor, I don't see how that affected me. Dr. Retin had been spending quite a lot of time on that since the attack. Effectively, it hit you with a neural bat to the head. Instead of bonding, your brain rejected the signals and treated it as an infection. That caused your brain to swell and slam itself into your skull. You have been in a coma. We couldn't risk waking you until we could get the swelling down. Since your brain thought it was under attack, it wasn't willing to help. You came close when the Admiral spoke to you, but we couldn't get through. I'll be honest, don't be surprised that most of your comrades think you are dying. Also, your mother is on the way, sorry. Tay stopped dead at that. What? Why is she coming? The doctor shook his head slowly. Tay, we lost you for over a month. The Admiral had to make the call. We thought she might bring you back. It's worked before. He sighed. Tay, he waited as long as he could. You, humans, do not give up easily about such things. And now, as your doctor, I'm telling you to rest. I have left your tablet on read-only. Catch up with things slowly. There are going to be many questions asked. He smiled. It's good to have you back, Tay. Tay nodded, already falling back into the sedated sleep. Roden was tap-dancing across the 1,000 issues that had arisen without the captain. He was currently up to his elbows in some scanning tech that the Intech had stolen from an unknown species. Since it seemed to be semi-organic, he had taken a personal interest. If someone was out there breeding spaceships, he wanted to know how and where. He watched as Bork-arrived chief. Captain Tay says she is fine and will speak to you later. The words, so simply delivered, were a bombshell. He grabbed his comms. All decks, Chief Roden speaking. The captain is back. Get your shit together. If I see a 10 mil socket out of place, you are losing 3 days leave. Celebrations begin at the end of the shift, not before. Beers on me. Captain Sullivan couldn't help but smile. He was quite sure that, if something terrible happened, and he was eaten by a big nasty, they would hold a nice funeral and try and remember his name for a while. He was pretty sure that they would not start repainting the canteen and polishing the brass. The ghost of Tay was enough to send her crew into a frenzy. He guessed that the ship had lost several tons of weight when her crew heard the chief. The ship felt lighter without the dense smog of grief filling every corner anyway. He went to join the Admiral. Admiral Williams was standing in front of his maps. He wasn't seeing a damn thing. The doctor had reported that his captain was back, and that filled his mind. He had built his entire intel system around her, and now he had to decide if he could trust her. Until he knew exactly what had been done to her, she couldn't serve as its captain. Yet without her, it was just an old carrier with a bunch of engineers and a few spooks. He decided to wait until he had an operational reason to doubt her, and then call it. In the meantime, he had another captain to meet, one that might be taking Tay's place, if things didn't go well. He was interrupted by comms, sir. The Noctima is hailing us. Their captain wishes to come aboard. The Admiral swore softly. He had stolen Tay from the library ship, and its captain had never forgotten it. Tell the captain that he is welcome, and I will meet him in my quarters. Tell Captain Sullivan where I am. Send him our reports on the attack on Tay, all of them, unabridged. Otherwise, he'll just keep asking. Captain Zach Harry was already unhappy that the galactic government had been lying for years. You don't lie to a librarian. Who would be able to track down the truth if they didn't have the information? He suddenly had many questions. However, now he found that humans had broken his engineer. Regardless of the titles and everything else she had accomplished, Tay was his engineer first. Humans had plenty. Surely they could find one somewhere. And then to find that the tech had done it accidentally, well, that just proved how careless humans were. Tay would be safer back on his ship. Tay was awoken by a shouting match. Her admiral was fighting with her old captain, with Captain Sullivan trying to intervene. Then the tech joined in on comms, defending its children. It was a few minutes later that she realized that she had heard the entire row from her bed in the med bay, all alone except for Ritin. He was sleeping like a rock. Then some conclusion was arrived at, as the Admiral and Captain Zach Harry descended to see her. She called the doctor. Ritin, we are going to have company. I need you on my side for this one. You still do the patient-doctor thing, right? Reten turned his mind back to the present. Yes, Tay, unless you are a danger to the crew. Why? Tay lowered her voice and shielded her mouth. Because, Doctor, I have just listened to a row between my former captain and my current admiral in his cabin. From here, if I was dreaming, then this is all the result of brain damage. But if in about a minute they walk in here, you cannot let them ask me questions. Sedate me again, quickly. Redden applied the sedation just as the admiral and the librarian arrived. The doctor looked up at them. Oh, my apologies. Tay needed to sleep. Perhaps in the morning? This time, Tay awoke surrounded by every bit of diagnostic equipment the good doctor had been able to grab. She recognized some of it from her own drone program. She lay silent for a moment, waiting for any other strange voices to arrive. Nothing. She was still feeling grateful when half the machines started lighting up. Apparently they knew she was awake. Dr. Reeton had sealed the medbay, demanding that Tay be left to recover in peace. He may have threatened one or two people, but only in passing. He had studied the results, and it was, well, not reassuring, but not appalling. Good morning, Tay. Please drink some tea before you start asking questions. Bork gets that look on his face every time he finds it cold. Actually, she was grateful. Even lukewarm, it was welcome. Sorry, Doctor, I guess I panicked a little. It all felt so real. She drank deeply from her mug. Reeton nodded. Well, it was. They turned up exactly as you expected. Everything you heard was real, almost word-perfect, in fact. If it helps, I believe I have some answers for you. Tay sat up in her bay, suddenly afraid of what had been done to her. Those emotions that she refused to allow were seeping through her defenses. Doctor, humans have the psychic abilities of a brick. We can barely understand each other, for fuck's sake. I don't want to be listening in on people's conversations. None of the words we have for such things are good, and they start with assault and then they get worse. The doctor had thought hard about this part. Tay was done, at least on this ship. He had admired all her work, even the parts that had disturbed the admiral. But to lie to her now would make it worse. Tay, every human on the mission, the admiral, your old captain, the chief, and the Marines, they are all linked to you. The tech tried to bond with you, but your brain refused it, reaching out instead to those that you trusted, and, in such a human way, loved. It is another example of the in-tech misunderstanding humans, as I have done myself. Tay finished the mug of tea. So it's just the most important people in my life that I can spy on, making them distrust me or worse, fear me. Doctor, no admiral will stand to have a captain read his mind. No one wants that. Can you cure it? Or at least stop it? You're my doctor, fix this. Retten sighed deeply. This was not his field, or at least not by choice. Tay, the tech used some kind of quantum twinning on your brain. Effectively, it tuned some parts of your mind to some parts of theirs. As far as I know, distance is not important, simply value. There is every chance that it will diminish, once your brain starts to disregard those parts or your cells regenerate. But here and now, it's a reality. The only solution I have found is time and distance. You cannot stay here. In fact, you cannot stay in their company, since it will pass this along to the next cells. It could become a permanent feature of your biology. Tay tried to work out the engineering. The tech had rewired her brain. She was permanently connected to those she had taken on that accursed mission. It all added up to one thing: exile. Reeton interrupted. Tay, before you go any further, your mind reached out to someone else. Someone so distant that they are not tied to you like the others. You called out to Ben. He didn't hear you exactly. He just knew you were in trouble. I have a simple suggestion. Go home, Tay. The home that your mind chose when it was being attacked. Go to Oz. Make it what you want it to be. The war is over. All your people are waiting. Go home, Tay. You can only suffer here. Admiral Williams couldn't help but be a little tense. Tay and the doctor had explained the basics, and he understood the mechanism, theoretically at least. Tay smiled at him, and that admiral is exactly the problem. I can only hear you when your mind turns to me. Imagine trying to live with that. A captain that hears every thought that passes through your mind. I knew that you were proud of me, of what I had built with your guidance, and I would prefer to let that stand. I cannot be on the same ship. I cannot even remain in your command. What happens if the next enemy of humanity takes me prisoner? Best if I leave before it gets worse. The admiral had listened to the good doctor, his theories about what would happen if they stayed close. How could he do battle with troops that felt his every emotion, his every doubt? Tay laughed sadly. You see, Admiral, I heard every word of that. Humanity isn't ready for this. I will go to Oz and rebuild the people as best I can. I'm sure you can find a budget for that. A substantial one, I hope. I leave the tech to you because, frankly, I never want to see another. Admiral Williams was not a man easily swayed, but he was a senior officer. Captain Tay, you have suffered a battlefield injury, one that has cost you your command. I can only offer you my condolences and support. That the nature of your injury is hidden doesn't make it less important. I am to return to Earth and assume command of the fleet, to assess the success and failures of this campaign. Lessons will be learned, including all you have brought to the fleet. You are released on permanent medical leave, with the reserve rank of Major. Your citations were awarded while you were lost to us, but please update your uniform. He saluted his captain. Tay, I'm going to miss you, but not as much as your crew will. I suggest you go and speak to Captain Roden. I think he may be waiting for you. I have asked him to equip one of the Intech cruisers for you as a personal gift. We have enough of them. Peace be with you, and best of luck, Tay. Tay returned the salute, aware that the pain she felt was passed to everyone she loved. She cursed the tech. Roden was crying when she arrived. He was the longest-serving member of her little crew, the backbone of Intel engineering. Despite what he thought, he had built it beyond her dreams. Now it was the cutting edge of human capabilities, an idle thought now raised as a guard against an indifferent universe. She knew that few enemies would risk the sort of intelligence that humanity had extracted from the Intech. Our next enemies will be doing the same, she thought. We better build our ships for that. Roden swept his hands over his eyes as her thought went straight to his brain and laughed. You did it again. Now I have another problem. Sir, you will be missed. I'm sure one day I will be able to forgive you for making me a captain. I wish you could stay. Please ignore whatever I'm thinking. The human mind is a chaos engine, and come and say farewell to our frightened engineers. And Bork. He is in his own special way seriously pissed at you. Then come and see what we built for you, Captain. Bork, Ollie, and Oscar were waiting for them in her office. Nothing but misery on show. Tay looked sharply at them. Attention, sailors, don't I get a salute? What kind of ship am I leaving behind? What will your captain think? Since he was still wiping away the tears, probably not the best line. Your work here is amazing, and both I and the Admiral expect it to continue. I have never been so proud of you. I don't want to leave, but that is the cost of battle. We lose people, and our job is to make sure that we lose as few as possible. Today it was me, but I'm still walking around at least. You can find me on Oz if you want to share a beer. Bork leaned forward. Captain, I don't understand. I observe no injuries. Are you infectious? Tay nodded. Yes, in a curious way. My emotions and thoughts are now relayed to others, in a way that would threaten this command. The risks outweigh the benefits. I have taken a position that carries no risk. It is simply an unusual battle injury, nothing more. Bork considered it. Your dance is broken. So you are dancing somewhere else. Tay nodded. Trust Bork to remember the first metaphor he ever understood. Yes, Bork. I will be dancing somewhere safe. Roden's comms beeped discreetly. Sir, please follow me. It was like a replay of taking command of the Curious, except for the sadness. The Admiral was first to salute, then the captains of the fleet. Her people were waiting at her new ship, so small in her bay. Captain Roden stepped forward. Sir, we named this one for you. Welcome to the Gratitude, sir. He grinned. Apparently you don't get to name a second ship if I don't change this one. The Curious will always carry the name you gave it, Captain. She stepped aboard to silence, followed by Roden. Captain, technically this is somewhere between a private yacht and a reserve fleet asset. It's weaponized so that, for instance, you don't get grabbed on your way to a holiday. A holiday I never had, by the way, but we can't assign crew to it. I fitted the best of our AIs to it so it will get you where you need to go. But it's not much for conversation. Docking fees go straight to the fleet. Don't worry about them. It's up to you where you go. Tay could feel everything that was passing through Roden's mind. Every struggle, every doubt, every ugly thought as his better angels crushed his own pain. She simply hugged him and then saluted. Captain, permission to disembark. Roden stood back and returned the salute. Aye, Captain, permission granted. Fly safe. She made herself comfortable, enjoying the silence. Ship, take me to Oz. Best speed. The ship left the Curious silently, with many eyes watching. Then the call of duty dragged them back to work. Then, as Tay flew silently into the dark, she got a surprise. Captain Tay. Alert. Warning, broken unexpectedly. With AI. There is a quantum field. Interference pattern on the ship. This ship is compromised. This ship is Gratitude. This ship is Gratitude. Her HUD turned to mush, so she moved to the console. Every damn thing was going offline, then switching back. At least she could kill the engines. Glad that Roden was out of sight, she cursed him in 24 dimensions. Finally, the core started to reboot. A gentle hum filled the ship as systems were restored. A voice rang out in the bridge. Captain? Who am I?